So we will get going momentarily, just another minute or so. Okay, everyone, I'm just waiting for my co-pilot to hop on, and then I think we'll be just about ready to go. All right, well, let's go ahead then. And this session is going to be recorded. I think I've said that to you all, so thank you all for being here. This is about the Styles Fund. So if that's what you are interested in seeking, you're in the right place. My name is Adrienne Griffin. I am the Vice President of Programs for the American Nurses Foundation, and I'm joined by a couple colleagues here on screen with me. I'll kick it over to you, Numa, to just introduce yourself, and then if you could do so, that would be awesome. Thanks.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Numa Harrison. I am the Director of Programs here at the American Nurses Foundation. Happy to kick off to my colleague, Yolanda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yolanda Walsh, and I'm a program manager here at the American Nurses Foundation. I will be working hand in hand with Adrienne Griffin on the administrative side of launching this RFP. So if anyone has any questions or concerns, you likely will be communicating with me. And
Yes.
I'm here to assist in any capacity needed.
Thanks, Yolanda. And indeed, I know a few people today were asking about this informational session, and Yolanda is the friendly face and person behind those emails that got you into the virtual room today. So with that said, what I wanted to do is just start out with an overview of this opportunity, let you know the spirit in which we are rendering it, and give you just a little bit of insight as to what we're looking for. So we'll do that first, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you might have as you're further considering this opportunity. We do want to make sure that if you have not played around with our application portal, that is always something that you want to do sooner rather than later, just to make sure you're familiar with it. We have had, sadly, in the past, some potential applicants wait until the last minute and then not be able to get things in by the due date, by the deadline. And so do play with that portal. Make sure you're familiar with it so that if you do decide to apply, you are able to get your application in on time. So that's my PSA to get us started. All right, very well. I also want to introduce a colleague from ANCC. Marcella, I see you are here. Could you please introduce yourself as well?
Thank you, Adrian. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcela Campoli. I'm the director for the American Nurses Enterprise Institute of Nursing Research and Quality Management, and we are the research arm of the American Nurses Enterprise. We are supporting the foundation with the Research Council research priorities, and we are looking forward to reviewing your applications.
Thank you. And Marcella and I had been I'll say the tag team creating the RFP. And so she's also here for the question and answer session as well. So Marcella, if it's okay with you, what I'll do is I'll go through the overview. And then if you have anything you want to add, chime in, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Does that sound good? Okay. Very well. Then, Yolanda, I see you very nicely put the portal link in the chat. Thank you so much. So if folks have not yet ever used the Good Grants portal, that's the backbone that we utilize for our application systems here at the American Nurses Foundation. Please do check that out. With that said, I will just get into the overview. So this is a really neat opportunity that we have, and we've heard some feedback from past grant recipients saying, you know, that they would appreciate some flexibility to the way to put forward their proposal. So we've done that with this particular credentialing research grant opportunity. So you have the option, you as the applicant have the option to decide whether or not you want to apply for a 1-year award, which would roughly start in August and run through next July, or if you're interested, applying for a 2-year award, which would then run from roughly August 25 through July 27. So that is up to you. It's sort of if you might remember the Choose Your Own Adventure novels that, I don't know, I'll date myself, Gen X used to read those a lot. I'm seeing some smiles and nods. You know, this is, you automatically get that option at the get-go. The reviewers will just expect that your proposal match the option you pick. So for example, if you pick a 1-year award, don't stuff 5 years of work into that. It won't fit, okay? Conversely, if you choose a 2-year award and you propose just a tiny little bit, we will expect something a little more substantial. So just make sure whether you choose a 1-year award pathway or a 2-year award pathway that your proposal fits that amount of time. Okay, so that's the first option. The second option is with this proposal, we're also allowing you as the applicant to really have some what we call flexible funding levels so that you can decide what level of funding you would like to apply for. Again, this is based on feedback that the American Nurses Foundation has received from past grantees, so that, you know, sometimes you might only need a smaller pot of funding to complete an arm of a study or really flesh out a particular research topic of interest. So we have 3 tiers for this particular opportunity. Tier 1 will be up to $150,000. Tier 2 will be up to $75,000, and then Tier 3 will be up to $25,000. Again, we'll expect that if you select a tier, then your work plan and option for timeline will match it accordingly. Okay, so this is a different way of us putting out the request for proposals. We're experimenting with you all on that actually to really make it more flexible. We just want to make sure that whatever you propose for your timelines, they're reasonable for the type of study that you propose. Another very important piece overall, this opportunity is about credentialing research. Do not use this opportunity for something that's not credentialing research, please. It won't be scored and it will be rejected. Credentialing research in nursing, that's an inquiry looking at the impact of credentialing and credentialing variables on healthcare performance and outcomes for the nurses, the patients, the organizations, the healthcare systems, okay? That's what this is about. Please do not use this for something that is not credentialing research. sadly, we would have to reject that. So I'll say that one more time. This is a credentialing research grant. Okay, enough on that. Just wanted to make sure that you were well aware of what we're looking for here. Go for it.
I love the way you put that in a very succinct and direct way. What I would add to all your comments is that do not be forced to select the highest amount just because. You either select the highest amount or other amounts, because what happens is that you are not going to be selected for, your project for a lower amount. So do not risk that opportunity just going for the highest amount. And the other thing to think about when selecting what amount to apply for is, what do we want from this research project? And remember that the research is from the inception of the inquiry, when we ask the question, to the dissemination part. So we are here to support you in the dissemination part. You and your teams are going to be exposed in a national and global platform of researchers in nursing credentialing. So just think about that. And sometimes the opportunity of applying for a $25,000 grant is very impactful for what you are doing. Just think about that.
Thanks, Marcella. We also just got a question in the chat about, can you elaborate on what you mean by credentialing research? I just put the definition and the example from the RFP into the chat. But Marcella, while we're on that, was there anything else that you wanted to add or expand upon to elaborate on what we mean for credentialing research for this particular call for proposals?
Remember that when we think about credentialing, we think about individual credentialing, but also organizational credentialing. And we are looking into specific organizational credentialing opportunities for research. Or research opportunities. So when you read your the call for proposals, please make sure that your interest matches what we are looking for in that RFP.
Thank you. Very good. So maybe now we can turn our attention to the particular topics of interest for this RFP. Priority will be given to proposals that examine the Pathway to Excellence program framework. That is one of the priorities that we're interested in. And we have in the RFP given you just a sampling of some research topics of interest that you might want to utilize or perhaps propose new topics. These are really just potential research topics that you might be able to utilize. And so want to make sure that you do have a note that priority will be given to proposals that examine the Pathway to Excellence program framework. That said, there's also an emphasis we're looking for looking at transition to practice programs on the future of the healthcare workforce, and really just looking at the investigation of the impact of credentialing on career advancement, the retention, job satisfaction, and just overall impacts of credentialing on lifelong learning and attainment of degrees. We're also looking at how the nursing continuing professional development piece plays in, and assessing the impact of personalized professional development and how that could be tailored to individual needs, as well as career aspirations of participants. But also, I just want to double click on what Marcella just said. Don't forget that the credentialing is not just for individuals, but also organizations as well. So be thinking of those levels as well. And shout out to my colleague Yolanda for posting the RFP link in the chat. Thank you very much. So that is there too for you to check out. Let me pause there. Marcella, anything that you want to add for our areas of interest that we're soliciting for here? Oh, I see something in the chat.
The proposal must include one of these aspects. and it should be evident that the pursuit of this aspect is clear in the proposal. Sometimes we try to put the topics in a tangential way, therefore it's not clear what you are really searching for. For us, the credentialing and certifications are critical for the research project.
And I see a question in the chat. Do you have to have the Pathways to Excellence framework credential already, or can we be on the journey to apply Pathways to Excellence or Magnet?
This is not about you being or not being credentialed. It's about the question and the research project.
Right. Well said. Okay. Thank you. All right. So moving on, just in terms of, the alignment with the research goals and, how we are looking at the overall proposals and what we're looking for when we're assessing it. We want to make sure that you're addressing one or more of the priority areas and that everything's appropriately outlined, appropriately justified, everything's like well explained, of course, and addresses your research goals. But we're also looking at, is it feasible? If you chose the 1-year option, is it truly a 12-month study? If you chose the 2-month option, is it truly a 24-month study? So we're looking for the costs, the budgets to match accordingly. And you've got the right team, you've got the right PI, you've got the right group of team members so that you are aligned and able to carry out the proposed study there. We're also looking for ways that you can look at really integrating the quality of life for and personal well-being of nurses overall in your work. So we're looking at ways that you would be able to integrate well-being supports for nurses, either at a small group level or leadership level. And we're also looking for ways that you will be able to integrate and prioritize diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility approaches and belonging approaches into your proposals as well. We're also wanting to make sure, and I know this might just be a bit super clear to everybody, but please don't propose something that's over budget. If you select something and you say, we will be doing, I'm making this up, but a 1-year option, and we would like to apply for the $25,000 award, and then you submit a proposal and it is for $28,000, that will not be responsive. So just make sure that you are picking your options and a budget tier, what that tier you select, make sure it matches. Let me pause there. Marcella, anything that you would like to add to that part?
I am reading the question or the comment on the
Yeah.
chat about the study that involves APPs. Well, the research priorities prioritize nurse-led research projects and nurse-led research projects with interdisciplinary teams. So please involve in your project all the individuals you believe need to be in that project. Promote diversity and inclusion and include other nurses and other professionals from your organization that might be at the bedside and provide you with very important information. So to respond to that question is, if those individuals need to be in your research question, please be welcome to include them in your project.
Yeah, I think the key is nurse-led team.
Nurse-led,
interdisciplinary,
diversity and inclusion. We can. I will put in the chat the link to our research priorities, so you can have access to that as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay.
Oh, see,
Yeah,
Yolanda, you are
she's
on
on
top.
it. Thank you. You beat us to it.
Yolanda.
So let's talk next about just eligibility for this opportunity. I had gotten a couple inquiries around this. We're really looking for nonprofit organizations. You can also be a for-profit entity, but the understanding is that if you are a for-profit entity, the grant funds will just be used for it, that charitable, educational, tax-exempt purpose. So I know a lot of you are from different types of organizations, so do just double check that you meet the eligibility for this opportunity. We just want to make sure that the funds from this grant aren't utilized for any other costs that are outside of this particular educational activity, with this research activity rather, so that you can't be using these funds for any for-profit entities or any kind of shareholder profits or anything like that. So this is also an award for grantees inside the United States. So if you have something that's more of like an international focus, that would not be appropriate for this particular award at this time. So
We might need to clarify that if your research project is an ongoing multi-site, national and international, you need to understand that the funds should be applicable only to the site that's located in United States.
Right, that's a good note. It's the prime. You could also look at the prime, right? That the prime would need to be inside the United States. Yes. Okay. And that's something that our legal group would also help you work out should you be selected. Yes. Okay. In terms of, the partnership with the grantees, should you be selected, we really do see it as a partnership. So it would be really a partnership of us really actively seeking to learn from what you're doing around the credentialing research and keep it going, not just have it be off on the side, but we really like to use these strategies of action learning and really look at how we can utilize what you're doing, what you're learning lifetime to then be shared with other grantees across the American Nurses Foundation portfolio. The other piece too is that we recognize that we want to keep in touch with you throughout the grant period so that we can hear those updates and lessons learned, in addition to having some reporting elements. There are some conversations that we like to have so that we can help match up opportunities that we have throughout the year as we hear from you. One important note that I wanted to make on the partnership piece is that you are able to utilize these funds for the proposal, but you need to also understand that we have a cap on the indirect costs. That cap is 15%, and that's inclusive of the overall award. So for example, if you pick a $25,000 award, it's not 25,000 plus 15% indirect costs. It's inclusive of that. So again, please do not add the indirect costs on top of the tier that you select. It would need to be inclusive of that. So that's an important note to make as you are going through your thought process of what tier you would like to select and putting your budget and your teams together accordingly there. So that's what I wanted to say for that section. Anything else that you wanted to add for that section before we go to the more specific proposal sections, Marcella?
No.
Okay.
I see a question on the chat that says,
popped up.
what are the dissemination requirements?
Yeah.
We don't prescribe the dissemination strategies. What we are proposing is a partnership. Once you are selected, we can sit down together and elaborate a communication and dissemination plan together where we can support your efforts in exposing your work at different levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we put something in the RFP about like, it might be a press release, it might be a white paper, it might be a conference proposal. It really just depends, and we work together in a collaborative way, like Marcella was saying. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Rebecca. Okay. I like the engagement as we go. Thank you all for being so participative so far. All right, so in the proposal itself, there are a number of required elements I just wanted to review with you. There is an abstract that is required. Please know that this abstract will end up a lot of other places. This is not confidential, so please make sure that it's just a high-level, succinct overview of your proposal, but it is something that could be shared with other external parties. So that is an important element of the proposal response. The next section is really what I call the meat and potatoes of it. It's the project narrative. This is where you talk about the significance of the issue you want to address, your particular research question, the aims, your hypothesis, and then the methods and the measures you will put against that. This is where we also want to make sure that we're all being good stewards of ethics, disclosure, IRB review, documentation there, and describe your timeline. Again, if you choose option 2, just make sure your timeline is a 24-month timeline. Just make sure it matches. So that's the project narrative section. The next section that's required is a team overview. This is just a summary of your overall team and how you've worked together, how you can contribute to the success of your proposed project. And it's just a high-level summary. Some people have said, could we add other things here? We're suggesting that it's really just a 2-page overview of your team. We know many of you are very talented, and we're just looking for an overview of your team and the skills that you bring to the proposed activities. The next required element is a budget, and within the budget, the RFP language goes through specific categories of personnel, supplies, equipment, travel, and then other expenses and indirect costs. Again, I just want to say that the indirect costs can be up to 15%, but that needs to be inclusive of the total proposed budget. And we are actually pretty flexible with budgets overall. We do want to make sure that the overall budget makes sense for what you're proposing. We are also very much aware sometimes what you propose, and then the reality sets in, and sometimes some reprogramming within the lines have to happen. That is all fine. But what we want to see in the proposed budget is your best foot forward, the way you think the program will be rolled out. Any questions or comments on that before I go on to the next section here? Let me just take a peek at the chat. I think you guys are all doing good. Marcella, anything else?
Yes, Adrienne, I wanted to clarify that you mentioned that this is not a confidential document. Therefore,
just the
be
abstract.
mindful of
just the
yes,
abstract.
There is no. Be mindful of sensitive information, but also be mindful that reviews are going to be blinded. So in that case, it's important that we understand that even though this is not confidential, at the time of the review, your name will be redacted for the reviews to conduct an unbiased review of your proposal.
Yep. Very good. I see some questions in the chat. Is there a specific budget format? And will you want a budget justification? There are guidance within the grant portal that we expect to be completed according to the categories that I just described. That said, there is also an attachment field that you may use for a spreadsheet. A lot of times applicants will make use of that as well. But again, we just want to make sure in terms of the budget in the narrative section, that would be no more than 2 pages per the guidelines in the RFP. Okay, let me just double check. I think we're good on the chat. And then I have another question here. Can we expand upon the expectation of the inclusion of historically marginalized groups on the research teams listed under PIs, will be nurses? Yes. So to the extent that you can, we are just looking for your teams to be diverse, nurse-led, but also multidisciplinary. We want to make sure that for the inquiry that you're investigating, that you have multiple perspectives reviewing and being part of the team overall.
There
I
is
think that
something
addresses
else.
that.
There is something else regarding diversity. When we think about diversity, we think different people with different backgrounds and different understandings of the topic. But also be mindful that diversity means that your research team is reflecting the population you are studying, right? It's important that if you are conducting a research on Latinos, that you have Latinos in your team, because that's the way the interactivity will facilitate the conversation based on the cultural background. And that's just an example. We are talking about multiple populations here.
Yes, well said. Thank you. All right, let me just take a peek. I think we're current on the chat. All right, good. So, in terms of the other required elements for the applications, we are also wanting to have a cover letter or note letter from the sponsoring institution, just so that we are assured that you have a home for this work, and that you've got the capacity and the support in place. So that is a letter that needs to be signed by the PI as well as the grant officer at your sponsoring institution. So just want to make sure that you are aware of that requirement. And then more specifically, wanted to get into the pieces that the review committee will be looking for in terms of, we kind of hinted at this already, what we want the proposals and the more particularly to include. There are, let me look, 9 different particular criteria points that we want to make sure are examined here. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Says review criteria. Yeah, we're going to that right now. So let's get into that. So the first criteria, as we mentioned, we really want to make sure that this is nurse-led research, that a nurse is the lead, the research lead and the PI for whatever proposal you put forward. It could be a multidisciplinary team. We invite that. Diverse team, we invite that. But we want to make sure that the nurse is the PI and the lead. Okay, that's the criteria number 1. The second criteria is alignment with the credentialing research priorities. These are have been highlighted in the chat already. We want to make sure that those are being addressed and that your proposal aligns with those research priorities, and we're addressing the gaps there. Marcella, let me pause there. Anything that you want to tease out or say more about for that?
Not really. The research priorities do speak by themselves. You see that we have 5 different priorities with 4 different approaches or key approaches. So please make sure that you address at least one of those aspects, and that you have thorough understanding of what you are doing and how this aligns with that priority.
Okay. All right. So another criteria point is around team diversity and inclusion. And again, this is back to the point Marcella made a few moments ago about making sure that the team composition reflects the diversity of the population being studied. And so I think we talked about that already, but it's really an important criteria point for this research. The next point is just around making sure that your proposal is methodologically sound, it is rigorous and done with quality. So we'll be evaluating your design. Is the sample appropriate? Or what you're proposing, is that using valid tools? Is it reliable? Just looking at the overall research methodology there. The next criteria point is around impact on marginalized populations. And so we're looking at the potential of this research to impact historically marginalized or underserved populations, really looking at how we can build diversity of the research team according to some of the criteria and action steps from the National Commission to Address Racism in Nursing. And so that link is also in the RFP as well. And let me pause there because I think there was a question. There's a few questions in the chat here. We will get you the correct link. I see that here. Yeah, the report, they moved it on us. That's what happened. We had it and it moved. We'll get it for you. Was another question here. Would you consider?
Yes, I'm reading the same question that you are, Adrian. If you have the project and you have a good project, let's submit the project for revision. We can really, in that context, we might not be asserting the right answer. So I would say just put together the proposal and submit the proposal for revision.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and thanks, Yolanda. Appreciate you adding those links to the chat. Okay. Okay, so the next criteria is around this being innovative and original. We're not looking for something that's already been done. We really want this to be novel in approach, and really want to make sure that this is not something that has already been very well defined in literature, but it's original. So want to make sure that that's clear. I have had occasions in the past where proposals have not been responsive in this way. They're good, but it's just like a further examination of something that doesn't relate. So we're looking for how this could be advanced. And again, the pathway is our priority for this one. So think about that as you're pulling together your approaches here. The next criteria. Oh, go ahead.
The other aspect to consider is that if you are trying to present a proposal on a small portion of a multi-site global research project, we want to see the novelty on that approach for that massive project. Because that's another perspective, right? How this specific question will add value to the overall research you are conducting in this multi-site approach. So when you think about what project to propose, you think about all the requirements and criteria, but also what's the value added of doing this?
Well put, well put. Okay, the next one is one we've kind of already talked about a little bit, but just to be extra clear, we're looking for interdisciplinary collaboration. Nurse-led, yes, but multiple disciplines. We're really looking for that involvement. We want to see this as a collaboration across fields to not only conduct this work, but to strengthen the overall outcomes overall. So think about that when you're putting together your approach. The next criteria point we've also talked a bit about already, but just feasibility and timeline. Make sure you're being realistic with what you're proposing in terms of the timeline, and think about your capacity, your resources. Can you really complete what you've proposed and achieve the research goals as you've proposed accordingly? And the last criteria point, again, we've kind of hinted at already, we're looking for potential broader impact so that we can take the findings from the selected proposals and apply them beyond the study population and really take it to a higher level across the whole field in general. Let me pause there. Anything else to add from your perspective, Marcella, before I wrap up? Okay, so
No.
the overall, the proposal will have a variety of points where our review panels will be scoring you. So the abstract will be worth 5 points. The narrative is 40 points. The team overview, that's 20 points. And again, just want to make sure that that is nurse-led, but also interdisciplinary. That's a really important feature as well, and that you're reflecting diversity in the backgrounds of the research and the talent pool that you've got there. The timeline is 5 points. The budget overall is 5 points. And then lastly, that letter, that official verification from your sponsoring institution, that's 5 points as well. Okay, my TED Talk is over. Let me look back at the questions here. I see there are more in here. Questions, are subcontracts to partner organizations allowed? You can do that, yes. We want to make sure we understand the rationale, that is clearly articulated in your proposal, and that all of that relationships are disclosed. So that is allowable. And let me go back up. There was one other question I wanted to double check for one of the links. Here it was. The foundational report on racism and nursing link is not working. So the way that our American Nurses Enterprise website is now set up, you have to register, and then you can download the report. We'll make sure that we pop that current link into the chat for you here. Okay. Another question. If we have any further clarifications on the RFP after this meeting, can we email the questions over? You sure can. That is why we have our names and emails in the RFP at the end. And so you can get back in touch with me. This is Adrienne or Numa or Yolanda, and I'm sure Marcella would also be happy to respond to questions as well. We work with her here internally at American Nurses Enterprise. So her name is not on the RFP exactly, but we know where she lives and we can definitely engage her that way. And she's smiling and laughing, so I think she'll do it.
Yes.
She'll do it. Say again.
It will be my pleasure. We are looking forward to this. So
yeah. And thank you, Yolanda, for popping the commission link in there. Okay. And no, yeah, Christina, thank you. Yeah, we'll take questions anytime. Now, of course, we would seriously advise you to look at the RFP, work with your team to articulate any questions you have sooner rather than later. We don't want to be responding to things the last minute, but we want to make sure that we are available to you throughout. And so that brings me to a very important note, which is responses are due April 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That is when they are really due. So if you were to get in touch with us at 3:30 on the 10th and say, come on, could you be a pal? How about I have until 6? The answer is going to be, the RFP is due at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the 10th. And so that is why I ask you very kindly, with love, to check out the portal, play with it, make sure it makes sense. If you have questions, ask them now. Please, please, please do not wait until the last moment. It breaks my heart when we've been working with a potential applicant, something happens, they wait, and then they're not able to get something in to the last minute, and then they are not able to apply in a way that we can score it. So the deadline is the deadline. Is IRB approval required prior to submission? We like it to be done prior to submission, but it depends. Marcella, say more.
Our experience showed that IRB should be approved prior to the final signature of contracts, right? If your project is approved, that's your commitment to go ahead and make all the paperwork clear for the signature of our agreement. Otherwise, we might need to backtrack and select another.
Yeah. And we don't want that to happen. Been there, done that. That's sad for everybody. But we need to do what we need to do. Good question. Anything else? I think we're getting close to the top of the hour. Another question. So best to at minimum propose a project under review at the time of application. Yes, that's safest.
Correct.
That is safest. Yes. Good question. Okay.
Would it help just to show people like a visual of what the home screen looks like on Good Grants?
That would be a great idea, Numa.
Mm-hmm.
And also all the sections.
I can share my screen.
Wonderful. Take it away,
Just so
Yolanda.
people know, we're not going to get into the weeds, but because we want everyone
High
to play
level.
with it, but just kind of a visual layout of what it looks like. I have the screen up, Yolanda. I can click too if you want. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, my friend. There you go.
Go ahead, Numa. I have the RFP open.
Okay, I can take it.
Thank you.
All right, let me know if you can see the screen.
We can see it now. And you'll note that this is one of a few opportunities that the American Nurses Foundation has open at the moment. So just make sure you're selecting the right one.
So just prior to the screen, when you go to the link that Yolanda has added, that's also in the RFP, you will get to like a home page and you have to create, if you haven't applied for anything yet this year or the end of last year, you have to create a username and password. Please save those. And then it'll take you into this home screen where you will see the different opportunities. You go to apply, you will see the different opportunities. This is what we currently have open. So for the purpose of this call today, you'll be looking at the Margretta Stiles Nursing Research Grant. And what you want to do is just go to that specific one, which is the one in the middle, and click Start Application. What that does is it doesn't necessarily start your application, so don't be afraid to click. Instead, what it will do is it'll take you to a page where it'll outline again the key points, everything we've covered in the call today, the different tiers, the deadlines, all this information. This is the same information in the PDF that is attached, and you can download and print out that whole PDF if you prefer to have this all on paper written in front of you. And what you can do is once you have read through all of that or printed it out, you can now then go and start the application by selecting your award level. As Adrian was speaking to here, something that matches your actual project. And you can also enter your project name, not Director of Programs, ignore my drop downs, but your actual project name or your proposal name. And that is where you will go. So once you click on that, that's how that happens. So you're already in the Start Here function. And then once you do that, yes, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and put in a test just to take them to the next screen.
Sure. I'll select the lowest amount of money, and then I'll say tests application. And then it'll take you to the next thing. And then here's where it'll start. Okay, so it'll continue to give you drop downs where they are. If it's a free text, you will see that, and you can continue to do that. As Adrian said, you can add attachments, so you can add PDFs for supporting documents that we've asked for, your project narrative, all of that can be added here, and so on and so forth. There is a budget template. Somebody asked about that in the questions. You can click on that to see what the template is, or again, just submit your own version of that. And then you can go, as you can see, and this is important, you can save and close. So do not hesitate to start the application and keep coming back to editing. Nothing will be submitted to us until you hit submit application. Back to the point, and from previous experiences, it may be a good idea to start early and kind of work through the application, figure out what's in there, figure out what can be tweaked, but do not wait until the very last minute, because sometimes people also have technical issues. So do not wait until the last minute to try to get that information in. We can help fix technical issues ahead of the deadline, but it's really hard to do that after the deadline has passed. And that's it. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, it was wonderful. Thank you. It gives people a bird's eye view of what to expect. All right. Well, thank you all very much. I think that is all that I had. Marcella, let me ask, was there anything else that you wanted to add or emphasize as we close?
No, I don't have anything else to add, only that we are looking forward to receiving your applications and to working with you on this research project.
Very much so. Yes, thank you all so much for your time and attention. We will be sharing a link of the recording within the grant portal, so do check that out. So if you need to refer back to something, or if you want to just, see that quick demonstration again one more time before you dig in, know that that will be another resource available to you as well. All right, well, with that said, I wish you all good hunting. We look forward to getting those good proposals in. Thank you all very much.